What's up, everybody? Just wanted to make this video real quick. I've been getting asked a lot lately about how I'm marketing my company. A lot of people are wanting to know, especially people that are starting out or that are smaller, are wanting to know how to market their business, or at least what I've done to market my business to experience pretty significant growth. And we've done a lot. We've done really well. Last year we're already profitable, and I would call it pretty well substantially profitable for a first year business. So I figured I'd make a post about it, and I will reach out to the people individually who have asked, and go into it more. But my tips for marketing this type of business are the following. One, it's going to depend, first of all, on your strategy. Are you wanting national accounts? Are you wanting mom and pops? Are you wanting, local chains? Each location, or each type of client, is going to be a little bit different the way that I guess you market to them. And there are multiple avenues that I've found successful. So I don't think it's a one or the other. I think it depends on your strategy. And I think you've got to do a little bit of everything, especially when you are smaller and don't have the resources, or even if you do have the resources to spend a lot on advertising, but they could be better used somewhere else, like inventory or additional tools or additional van or whatever, and you don't want to have to put a lot out in marketing. So my first thing for me is a LinkedIn presence is critical for my strategy. I actually I thought when I started my business, I was going to connect a lot with the independent mom and pop places. And I have connected with a few, but I am hitting a lot better stride. I'm working a lot better with chain accounts, with project managers, with installation managers, basically with people that have been around the block for a while, or people that are constantly dealing with service and maintenance companies and situations. Those are who I tend to do the best with. And the easiest way to maintain the relationship with those people, I have found, is to be connected on LinkedIn. And when you're on LinkedIn, you should have a page for your business, and you need to have a page for yourself. And the main thing is, one, you need to obviously post the work that you do. Whenever we do a job, especially an installation or something big, I post it, and then I make sure I tag the company that contracted us to do the work. I tag the specific project manager, installation manager, whoever it was, because I want to give them a visual to see the work that we've done. This also obviously allows other customers, whether they're current or potential customers, to get visuals of the type of work that you do. And I've had customers reach out to me and say, hey, we've seen the work that you've been posting. Can you give us a bid for this? Can you give us a bid for that? And I land the bid almost every time. So I'm already building my reputation and displaying my quality of work through LinkedIn, and it's getting me a fair amount of business. No, I should say a great amount of business. And like I said, it keeps it in the eye of the customer. It keeps it in the eye of potential customers. The other thing that I do is, you got to make sure that on LinkedIn that you post about yourself. What got me gaining traction on LinkedIn was, even before I started my company, was me honestly critiquing crappy work, but also critiquing crappy attitudes, and calling people to do better in this type of work, to do better in business. That's really where my connection with people started. That's where my mentors came in. That's where manufacturers and different entities, that when I said, hey, I'm going and I'm launching my own business, they started reaching out to me. A lot of them did, and said, hey, we want you to take over our work. That was all because of the reputation that I built. And I'm always myself on social media. The person you see on social media is the person that you will see in person. I'm no different. I don't change. This is just how I am. Like me, don't like me. You will always know who you are dealing with. So in addition to posting your jobs and posting stuff about your company, post yourself, post who you are, let people get to know you. I post things on LinkedIn that are quote unquote not supposed to be on LinkedIn. I post opinions, I post, personal stuff, thoughts. I've posted, struggles and different things. And there's always that factor of how are people going to react to this. But then it blows my mind because the stuff that I think could negatively impact the way people and potential clients view me ends up being some of the stuff that people connect with the most. So I 100% will say LinkedIn for your personal a personal profile and for your business, and just put yourself out there, put your work out there. Even if your work's not perfect, even if your posts aren't perfect, put them out there. Let people get to know you. The next thing that I've done is I've gone on company websites, and I go to the contact us form. So recently, for example, I've done this several times, but recently I sat down on my iPad, I typed in restaurants near me on Google, and it was probably 100 restaurants that popped up in my radius that I went to their website and either found an email address and shot them an email, or I hit their contact us form and I submitted it with information about my company saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. If there's an opportunity to become your service provider in this area, I'd love to talk with you, and whatever. And I've gotten great responses. I've landed some nice accounts doing that. I actually just landed a nice size chain in the area, and a few others just in the past, starting off this month. I've landed some great accounts just by going to websites and saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, can we talk? The next thing that I've done is I have sent mailers. It's old school and a lot of people think it's outdated, but it is cheap. Okay, sending mailers for the return you can get as a service provider is cheap. And I mean, one in particular, I reached out to a guy on LinkedIn that owns a couple local restaurants, and we were chit-chatting, and he said, yes, I'm looking to switch my service provider. Let's talk, whatever. And then the conversation went dead. After, say, about 2 to 3 weeks of not hearing back on LinkedIn, I sent him a handwritten letter to his local office. I got a text message, hey, let's have a meeting in person. We had a meeting in person. Not long after that, I'm changing out the equipment on his walk-in cooler. He had equipment damage on evap was leaking on his walk-in cooler, and we redid the evap and the condenser. This is all from LinkedIn messaging, and I don't know, $1 and change worth of postage, paper, ink, and envelope or whatever. So believe it or not, this is a great method. And I've gotten several other accounts this way. One guy called me and said, hey, you know what? I've been burned by companies in this area, but I read your letter that you typed out, and I want to give you a shot. And he's been a good account. I had another guy, it's a franchisee of a pizza place, same situation. He said, hey, I got your letter. I think this is great. And he's been using me for work. So for very little, I have gotten a massive return using postage. So my two strategies with postage are this. I've sent out regular postage, regular stamp envelope, letter in there, a discount card, use $50 off your first service call, and it's just been to the masses. I mean, I've sent out hundreds of them. But the other thing I've done is when there's an account that I know, say they've got multiple locations, they're going to be a good account, I've heard good things about them or anything like that, and I can find where their corporate address is, locally or kind of locally, I'll send them a UPS letter. And it's the same exact letter that I send in the mailer, with the same discount card, the same description of who we are, what we do, and such. But I send it UPS. And the reason I send it UPS, which is a little bit more expensive, reality is probably 10 times more expensive for the postage, compared to postage. But in reality, I'm talking about it's $10 per letter versus, $1 and change per letter. But my strategy with going UPS is most people are going to throw away mailers, especially if they have a sticker from a company on it. You don't know the company. Most of those letters are going in the trash. Even though I had success, I expect that 99% of them will go in the trash. That's why I send out a lot, because if I can land, 2% of 300 letters, then I'm making a return. But with the UPS letters, my thinking is that you don't get a UPS letter delivered to you every day. And even if you do, it's usually important. It's more likely that people will open the UPS letter and at least read what I sent them. Whether it goes anywhere or not, you can't guarantee that, but I do feel like it's a higher investment, but it's a higher likelihood that at least you'll get in front of the customer. And again, I've gotten great return on that. I've landed a local franchisee that has, I think, 6 locations. I can't remember off the top of my head. And that's how I did it. So again, that's basically an infinite return on the money that I put out. With those, because of the cost, I am more selective of who I send them to, and they are very targeted. And then the last thing, and again, it's old school, but going door to door, I have landed and I have made probably an infinite return on door to door, door knocking. And then again, the same thing that I was giving out in the mailers and in the UPS is the same thing I was handing out. It's a letter. Hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. This is why we're different. Here's a $50, off your first service call, whatever. And I have done, I've got a local franchisee with 9 locations. I happen to be, and you can call it luck or whatever, but the day I walked into one of his locations, the regional was in the location. I handed the paperwork to the manager. I barely made it out of the parking lot, and they called me to get more information. And within 2 weeks, I was signed up to provide service to 9 of their locations. And a few weeks back, I was talking to the regional, and he said, "Man, you walked in at the right time." He said, "We were just discussing that we feel like we're getting overcharged and crappy work from our current provider, and we need to switch." He's like, and as I'm having that discussion, the manager that you handed to the paperwork comes back and says, "Hey, we were just talking about this, and this is what a guy dropped off." Again, old school. A lot of people think it's played out, but I think there's so little of it now that it is it's a very successful and it's a very economic way to promote your business. And when when you're starting out and you've got nothing, you've got all day to drive around and do it. When you're busy, keep literature in your car. If you're working at a restaurant, chances are there's 2 or 3 in the same plaza at least that you're not doing business with. Take an extra 5 minutes to drop paperwork off to each of them and just introduce yourself quickly. Say, "Here, I'd like to give this to the manager," and if you got to be out from there to run your next call, do it. But these are, to me, they have been great ways to build the business. Super inexpensive. I've looked at Google, and Google is insanely priced for businesses that are starting out. The amount of money that I would have had to pump into Google to get the same results I'm getting now would be astronomical, and my return would be minimal. But I have received, like I said, a massive, what I would consider infinite return on my ad spend, just from doing old school. And yes, I know old school is not going to work forever, but there is part of me that thinks there will always be, or at least for the foreseeable future, there will always be a benefit to making that human old school connection where people are getting inundated with ads all day long. Somebody walking in the door is different. So anyway, it's been wildly successful for me, and I just want to throw that out there because so many people have been asking me how I've grown my business so fast, how I've made it so successful. And another thing that I'll add, going back to social media, don't be afraid to drop in people's DMs and throw sales pitches at them. Again, I've landed manufacturers by doing that. I've landed some other project management accounts with project managers and install managers. Great accounts I've landed by dropping into DMs and saying, "Hey, this is who I am. This is where I service. This is what I do." And then there's also follow-up, right? Because you're not going to get, more often than not, you're not going to get any response, or you're not going to get a good response your first time going out. Like I said, if I land 2 or 3% of the emails or the messages or the mailers that I send out, I think that's good. But follow up, because you know what? They may not need you today. They may not need you next month, but at some point, they're going to read that email and they're going to say, "You know what, either we need to change or our normal guy's not available, or whatever it is, and there's a, you'll get that chance. A lot of people say, oh, I reached out, I didn't hear nothing back. Well, then reach out every 3 months. Hey, just following up. Hey, just checking in. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you're like me and, the way you speak and the way you normally type isn't necessarily the clearest or the smoothest or the most polished, what I like to do is I like to go and I like to type out what I'm trying to say. Then I'll throw it in Chat GPT to get it polished. But what I also do is I have basically trained Chat GPT to understand the authentic part of me that I want to constantly communicate, and make sure it does not lose my authenticity when it's polishing my my sales letter or my DM that I'm sending or whatever, because if you just say, hey, Chat GPT, polish this for me, it'll make it super professional. But I don't want I'm not having AI write my stuff, I'm having AI clean it up. But I also want to make sure that people know who they're dealing with. So when you see me on social media, when you get my DM, you get my email, you get my letter, whatever you get, and then we speak on the phone or we speak face to face, you knew who you were going to meet. You know what I mean? I don't want you to get a polished message and then you come and talk to me and I talk the way that I talk. So that's another thing. So I think those are all my tips for marketing. Get out there, hustle, and just do it, and you'll see growth. But it's got to be consistent and you got to be dedicated to it. All right, y'all.